It's me, your boy. And did you know that I also consume media other than books? Let's talk about it. We all love a good comp title. You know, the thing where at the beginning of a book blurb it is compared to this and this meets this, that kind of stuff. And sometimes there is a sneaky little TV show reference in there or a movie reference instead of another book or another author. That one. That's the thing we're going to do today. I will give you TV shows, and if you like these TV shows, then I will recommend a book to you that can be somewhat compared to the TV show. Easy enough concept. It has been done 100,000 times before. It will be done 100,000 times after this video. So I will give you 6 TV shows, 5.5 TV shows that I myself enjoyed very much, and I will give you books that gave me similar, if not the same vibes. Do we all know what's going to happen here? Nice. Let's go. The first show I have for you is Bridgerton, a show that I never thought I would actually enjoy. When it came out, I was like, yeah, this is not for me. And then a bunch of people around me started watching it and they loved it. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's literally not what my jam. Until I read the book that I'm going to talk about. Because I loved that book so much that I needed more, but I couldn't find more other than Bridgerton. So I started watching Bridgerton and yeah. So what book am I going to compare to the show Bridgerton? Well, it's called A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. You might think, okay, the similarities are probably going to end at a Regency era romance. You would be wrong. You would be wrong. I am going to be more detailed than that. Yes, this is a Regency romance. Yes, we are following a lady who is going to fall in love with a duke. But it is so much more than that. Specifically, we are going specifically to Bridgerton Season 2. We are going to be a bit more specific than just Regency romance. In A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall, we have, just like in Bridgerton, a broody duke and a lady who helps him get back to himself, to find back to who he actually is. Specifically, Season 2, where we have our duke, who is desperately trying to be more duke-like, who is desperately trying to be this idea of an ideal that he has. And then we have this random ass lady who isn't even nobility come along and just throw everything into the wind and fix him over the course of the season, right? And in both this book and in Season 2 of Bridgerton, this duke that is trying to be more duke-like, all of this is fueled because of their dads. They have daddy issues that make them go nuts. And in both cases, this trying to meet this ideal is kind of destroying them until the lady comes into their life. Speaking of the ladies, both ladies in Season 2 and in this book are specifically women from a lesser standing who are helping a younger lady making her debut in society. That is how precise this is to Bridgerton. One major difference between this and Bridgerton, though, is this lady is a trans woman, and she and the Duke were best friends, and they went to war. He got gravely injured. He now has his leg is just not good. He has a permanent disability connected to not only a limp, but also to chronic pain. And she actually faked her own death in this war so she could embrace who she really is. Namely, she transitioned in secret, leaving her best friend over there thinking she died, until years later they meet back again and she's helping him to get back to who he was before. And then during that they hang out together and realize, maybe this was more than friendship all along. And then they fall in love. But this is a comp I can vouch for. I read this book, I looked for the same kind of kick, and I got it with Bridgerton. So if you like Bridgerton, read A Lady for a Duke. If you like A Lady for a Duke, watch Bridgerton, specifically the second season. The next comparison I have for you is for the show Hannibal, the NBC show Hannibal. And I am actually comparing this to A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Now, you might think one is about serial killers and cannibals, and the other is about a toxic relationship with vampires in it. Well, yeah. Have you ever considered that cannibalism and vampirism are technically cousins? They both come, if you get a little psychological here, they both come from a point where you are so obsessed, or you're so much in love with someone, so obsessed that you want to literally consume them. Vampirism, there is this footnote of you want to have someone that is like, that needs you to survive. Cannibalism is you want to consume their very being because you're so obsessed with them. They are basically cousins if you think about it. But in A Dowry of Blood, we have toxic relationships, we have mindfuckery, the manipulation levels are through the roof, and the whole thing is told in this very visceral kind of way that leans heavily on your typical gothic prose, kind of like this kind of poetic telling. And same could be said for Hannibal, because if you think about it, it's definitely a very visceral story. Like, there's no doubt about that. But if you think about it, it is also a very gothic way of storytelling. Just think about it. If you know your gothic literature and stuff, it's a very gothic way of telling things. And the way Hannibal is manipulating Will to do what he wants him to do, and like the twisted mind games between these two brilliant minds, and the places they go, and the depravity behind it all, the toxicity between these two, so good. And again, it's a very visceral story, just as visceral as A Dowry in Blood. Also, people are reading queer subtext into this relationship between Hannibal and Will, and the showrunners themselves and the actors themselves said multiple times in interviews before that that was exactly what they were going for. This kind of queer relationship between these two, but it is too damaged and too toxic to ever be more than what it is on screen. They are not necessarily gay for each other, but they are gay for each other. In The Dowry of Blood, you have this incredibly toxic relationship and no one can get out of it, because they are weirdly obsessed with each other, and the power dynamics are also like a big play in this. And it's just also a lot of murder and mayhem, because of course. So if you like A Dowry of Blood and think vampirism is about as sexy as cannibalism, watch Hannibal. If you think Hannibal is cool and cannibalism can easily be substituted for vampirism, read A Dowry of Blood. Can only recommend. Vampires. For the next one, I'm stretching it a little bit because we have to jump age gaps in here. But my next comparison is for The Haunting of Bly Manor, one of the many masterworks of Mike Flanagan. Love the man. Amazing what he does. And I am comparing The Haunting of Bly Manor with Belladonna by Adalyn Grace. Now, this is technically a YA. It's like new adultish. Like it's right at the cusp between young adult and new adult. Whereas The Haunting of Bly Manor is definitely not for young adults necessarily. It's for like a higher age range. But the vibes are very much the same, because both of these stories are gothic stories filled with weird ghosts, murder mysteries, a strange family connected to all of this, and a very extravagant love story. So the vibes are very much the same. Now, Belladonna doesn't lean too much into the whole horror aspect. There's still horror elements in here, don't get me wrong, but this is very much the atmosphere that The Haunting of Bly Manor gives you, not so much the horror element. Yes, we are talking to ghosts, yes, we're dealing with ghosts, yes, we're dealing with very aggressive ghosts from time to time, but we are more focused on the murder mystery in this one, whereas we are focused on the ghost mystery in A Haunting of Bly Manor. But the vibes are the same! The vibes are the same! I do have to say the love story in A Haunting of Bly Manor is better. It's hitting harder than a love story in Belladonna, but that is because the love story in A Haunting of Bly Manor is connected to this very tragic aspect. I'm trying not to spoiler here. It's like one of the last lines. I was shooketh when she said that. And in this one, the love story is not necessarily tragic. It's just another tiny mystery to add to that, because our main character in this book slowly or quickly falls in love with death, because death himself is a character in this. So there's less tragedy here. There's still tragedy in here. Like, her life is one tragic mess after another, but it is not the emotional core kind of tragic than you have in Bly Manor. But still, if we just compare the vibes of these two things, Yes, yes, this might as well take place in the Bly Manor itself. Then we come to a personal favorite of mine. No one has ever heard of that show, somehow. I don't know. People should watch it. It's brilliant. It's from the brilliant mind of Dean Devlin. I love everything that Dean Devlin touches. If he touches it, I'm watching it. Also, 90% of the time, Christian Kane is in it, and I also will watch Christian Kane until I die. It's fine. But I'm talking about the show The Librarians. There are also 3 movies with Noah Wyle. You know, the guy from Emergency Room, that one. And they made a show based on these 3 movies. Or rather, they took these 3 movies and then they kept telling the story with the show. And now there's even a sequel show to that show. It's amazing. The Librarians is basically if you take the Indiana Jones franchise, add more magic, but also make it funny instead of action. Like there's still some action, but we take the action movie aspect out and throw in some comedy. Then you get the Librarians. It's brilliant. It's so funny. I love it. What am I comparing the Librarians to? Well, the Library of the Unwritten, which is also about a magical library, and it is so funny. Now, the difference between the Librarians library and the Library of the Unwritten library is that this library is in hell, and it features not books that have been written or any weird artifacts, for that we have another wing, but in this one, in this specific library, you can only find stories that have never been finished. Every abandoned project of every writer across time lands in the Library of the Unwritten, and this library is currently anchored in hell. Why? No one knows, it's just there. And in the Librarians, we hunt down magical artifacts before they fall into the wrong hands, and usually, because these magical artifacts are shenanigans in them themselves, they do fun stuff, but they also do terrible shit. So we have to collect them, and we have to put them away safely in the library. Both of these libraries are actually extraterrestrial spaces. This library in the Librarians is anchored to New York and a bunch of other things, like you can actually open an interdimensional portal door to hop back and forth. Also, in both of these, you only ever have one librarian. And that's the whole thing in the Librarians. You only have one librarian and you have one guardian who is tasked to protect the librarian. Librarians die left, right, and center, so there is an ongoing list of possible candidates for the library because you have to be a super genius to become the librarian. And then one day things go haywire and we now have 3 librarian apprentices, which then eventually graduate to becoming actual librarians. Who's deciding on who's going to be the librarian? The library, of course! And it is very similar in the Library of the Unwritten. We have one librarian who has to be an author who never finished any of their project. Our librarian in this one, all of her works are in the library and she cannot look at them because that would fuck around with the continuity or something. The library itself chooses who the librarian is. In this one, the librarian is less of a person who goes on all these adventures to collect things. They are more of a caretaker of the library and make sure nothing gets stolen or leaves the library. In the Librarians, it's someone who gets shit into the library. But there is a plot in season 2 of the show where shit gets lost from the library. So technically the plots align, because in this one too, something, or rather someone, is released from one of the books inside this library, and the librarian has to go hunt this character down before the character meets their author in order to change their own story, which then would basically kill him because his story is now different, and therefore it's a different character's story. It's a whole kerfuffle. Both in the book and in the show, we brush against different mythologies from all around the world, and shit be funny. Shit be hilariously funny, both in the show and in the book. So if you like the Library of the Unwritten, try out the Librarians. If you like the Librarians, try out the Library of the Unwritten. Speaking of Dean Devlin and Christian Kane, let's talk about the next show, Leverage! Also from the brilliant mind of Dean Devlin, with Christian Kane as one of the main characters. I told you I love whatever these 2 men cook up. So what is Leverage about? This is a bit more famous than the Librarians, and in Leverage we basically take the concept of Robin Hood and make it a band of thieves, but they all have different specialities. Like we have one thief, we have a grifter, we have a hacker, we have a so-called hitter, Christian Kane. He basically punches you in the face and knocks you out and then takes whatever he needs and then he leaves. And we have a mastermind who is planning all shit and keeps these 4 balanced and uses their talents to their maximum efficiency, because all of these characters work as their own thing until they come together through circumstances and they realize we are better as a team, even though we don't know how to function as a team. And then they basically stand in for the small guy who gets dicked over by giant companies and shit. It literally says in the opening, sometimes the bad guys are the better good guys, and they basically steal back what all of these rich people steal from the small man, and they make things right. What am I comparing this to? Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. Why am I comparing these two things when one of them is a contemporary funny crime comedy thing and the other one is a fantasy thing? Well, because both of these feature very elaborate long cons. Like every episode we have a new case, yes, but they have these, and this team plans these elaborate cons to get what they want and the most from what they want for their client. And in this one we also follow a long con that is played out by our main character who stole the identity of someone else to pass themselves off as a princess, so to speak, to then use their position within the rich and famous to steal from the rich and famous. Now in Leverage they steal for clients who have been wronged. In Little Thieves she steals for herself until a goddess tells her that her greed is bad, and this goddess curses our main character literally for her greed, and she tells her, hey, if you want to get rid of this curse, you have to be a good girl. And our main character, who's never been a good girl, is struggling very much to figure out what the fuck she's supposed to do to get rid of this curse before she turns into a giant statue of gems and whatnot. So both of these things feature these elaborate long cons, but funnily enough, both work out fine. It's so incredibly complicated, and yet every piece falls into place, even with some stumbling along the way for the drama. In the end, everything works out the way it should work out. Kind of. We have to take some artistic liberties to the original plan, but it works out. Then in both of these, the humor is on point. Sometimes it's just stupid, sometimes it's just the right amount of intelligent. The humor is peak in both the show and the book. And in both of these, the shit that is happening happens for the greater good. Eventually, we are getting there at one point. And this is the funniest part that I found in the comparison between this show and this book. After the con is completely over and the bad guy is getting their punishment, basically, we kind of get a recap of how the final thing in the con worked in the show and in the book as well. Like, it just plays out, and then afterwards you get a recap of how it actually worked. It's literally the same thing. So if you like Leverage the show and don't have a problem with putting all of this into a fantasy setting with younger characters, read Little Thieves. If you enjoyed Little Thieves, you will enjoy Leverage. I promise you that. And the last thing, which is technically the 6th show, but also technically just a 5.5, is the sequel show to Leverage, which is Leverage Redemption, which takes place a couple of years after the series finale of Leverage. And for that, I'm picking up Painted Devils, which is the sequel to Little Thieves. Again, these things are very similar to each other, because now in Leverage Redemption, we have established that we do things for the little man, but we are focusing more on the why we still do it after all of these years, which is we did so much bad things in our life when we were still on the wrong side of the law for the wrong reasons, being a thief, being a grifter, blah blah blah, and now we are basically working off this karmic debt. And in Painted Devils, our main character is basically doing the same. After book 1, she now teams up with a guy that has a good influence on her and actually makes her think about, hey, what if you use all of these skills you have in doing the wrong thing? You take all of that and you try to do the right thing with these skills, and then shenanigans ensue. And again, we have a con in here because they are still conning people. We are just shifting the focus of we are having fun by doing good to we have to work off this karmic debt. We actually like what we are doing now. And you have the same thing in Painted Devils. She's still pulling con after con after con, but now she's doing it for a different reason. She's not doing it for herself anymore. She's doing it for other people, and she feels good by doing it for other people. These are very much alike, just like the first show and the first book, so I had to put both of these in. Same thing goes for Leverage Redemption. If you like Leverage Redemption and don't mind younger characters in a fantasy setting, read Painted Devils. Definitely have to read Little Thieves before this because plot. And if you enjoy Painted Devils, maybe try your hand at Leverage Redemption after you watch Leverage. Now, you can watch Leverage Redemption without having seen Leverage, but you will miss out on certain character dynamics, especially in the first season, which deals with a major character death that happened between shows, which informs certain character motivations. So I recommend watching Leverage first and then Leverage Redemption, but you could technically watch the sequel show without the prequel show, if that makes sense. And there you have it. I compared 6 books to 6 shows that I really much enjoyed, and I do hope there is something in there for you. If not, check out the shows anyway. Read these books anyway, they are all brilliant, and I love them, and I need more people to perceive these shows specifically. Dean Devlin is my personal hero. That man can do no wrong. If you made it this far into the video, let me know some of your favorite stupid shows that you think no one watches, like ever, and maybe even compare them to some books if you want to get people to read the books / watch the shows. And if you don't have anything to say, leave a television emoji in the comments so I know that you made it all the way through this here video of me just indulging myself and my favorite media. That's it for me, and I guess I will see you in the next video. Bye!